Good evening, everybody, and welcome back for another episode of the Big O Podcast. Today, I am joined by none other than Pac-10 collegiate athlete, still holds some records at the old school, former Canadian sprinter and Olympian, and currently host for CBC, Mr. Anson Henry. I don't know why I said
before,
Anson
man.
Carter.
It's happened before.
My goodness.
It's happened numerous times before, man. Join the list.
I feel bad.
The funny thing is, my mom actually, she used to work for the mayor, right? And she ended up meeting Anson Carter.
Oh, shoot.
And she was always saying, my son is the real Anson, your name Anson, but my son Anson Henry is the real Anson. But yeah, and Anson Carter thing happens all the time, dog.
Yeah, man, listen, I'm in good company then. If Mama can say Anson, then it's totally fine. Anson Henry, how you doing, man?
Chilling, man. What's good? It's been a couple weeks?
Yeah, it's been a couple weeks. We connected on the Good Rookies podcast. We were both guests with Nelly J and Fahim. Shout out Good Rookies. And I said the only way I'd ever go back to that podcast again, because it's such a great time, I'm like, you got to bring back Anson, because I felt like we had a pretty good vibe and conversation going. So
yeah, it was cool still. Yeah, we touched a lot of touchy things. Well, touchy, I don't know. There's a lot of controversial things we talked about. You know what I'm saying? Sure. Everyone has the differing opinions on basketball and stuff, but we got into the Caster Semenya stuff, and then we got into it was a good discussion, man. We touched on a lot of things
for sure. And we've been sort of chatting.
Yeah, it was respectful. We didn't agree that much, but it didn't really get too out of hand, which I don't mind.
Yeah,
but it's like.
I feel like differing opinions are always good to help you grow, because while you tend to see things from a different perspective. And it's funny because we've been chatting a lot of offline, and there have been some things that have come up where we have really sat on sort of opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to our conversation. And so I was like, this is great. This is the first time I'm having someone who's super respectful, who I really enjoy talking to, but does not see eye to eye with some of the stuff sports related that that we've talked about. So I think it's going to be kind of fun, and we're going to see how it goes, and we're going to see where we sort of end up. But I want to start off by really talking about you, because before the podcast I was sort of showing you that I have some familial ties to some U.S. college that
Jersey. I see.
That's right. It's a rival of where you actually went to school. And I don't want to screw this up again, because I did before we talked about it. You went to Washington State University, home of the Cougars. That's Cougars, right. Man. But let's talk about how, you're born in Toronto, and how do you end up, getting into sprinting? How do you get into the sort of track and field? How do you end up in Washington? And then we'll pick up your journey. But how do you go from Toronto kid to U.S. collegiate sprinter?
Well, the funny thing is, I didn't start running track till 12th grade.
Oh, geez.
But it ended up going better than I expected it to. I thought I was just going to jump on a relay team and run well, but then it ended up going a lot better. I don't know if you remember back in the day we had OAC years.
Yeah, that was grade 13. I was the last year that didn't have it. So I was grade 12 was my last year, and the year before me was the last OAC year.
Okay, so yeah, I had an OAC year after that first year. I did track, and my OAC year went really well track-wise. And then back then, it wasn't like a YouTube thing where people could see my races online. I'm mailing videotapes to schools, right? So I'm mailing to UCLA. I actually mailed a tape to USC.
Okay,
USC,
there we go.
Washington State. There's a bunch of schools in the SEC, so I'm sending my tapes all over the place, right? And then, honestly, not many people know this, but I really wanted to go to UCLA. I really wanted to go there. And they saw my tape, and the coach there at the time was like, yeah, we'll give you a full ride, man. It's all good. So I'm telling all these other schools, hey, I'm going to UCLA. I'm going to UCLA. I'm going to UCLA. And then probably a month before I was supposed to make my way out there, the coach hollered at me, was like, okay, we're about to send over the paperwork, but small little issue. One of our football players wants to go full-time track and field. You've run 1040 out of high school. He's run 1034. I wanted to give you the full, but we can't give you the full. But all you have to do is pay for room and board. I was like, I ain't about to pay no room
Jeez.
and board. I'm not trying to pay for no school at all. I mean, I've been
Right.
getting offers from all over the place. So
Yeah.
then it turned into like, the callbacks, like, hey, that scholarship we had, and it was a lot of schools had already moved their money someplace else, right? And
Right.
then, but Washington State was still like stuck around strong. You know what I'm saying? It was still in the same conference, and um, I don't know. It wasn't like, I wouldn't say it was like a situation where I went somewhere I didn't want to go. I just didn't
Right.
expect to go there. And when I went there, I mean, it worked out for the better. I love my time there, and I ended up whooping on all them UCLA guys anyways. So
Yeah.
whatever.
I'm not surprised, UCLA, bunch of, don't really have nothing nice to say about them. So my
Oh,
mom always told me not to say anything at all.
right. So you're a USC cat, so you really don't like that. You have the situation that we would have with UW, University of Washington.
Exactly.
Like, yeah. So
Yeah. It's actually funny because
I put a good whipping on them for you, yo. And I
good. Yeah.
put a good whipping on y'all too.
I appreciate that. I appreciate anytime UCLA, the New York Jets, I'm trying to think of some other rivals, anytime those guys, don't do well, the LA Clippers,
Oh
anytime
yeah,
they
that's
don't do
another.
well,
That's
I'm good
another
with
one.
that. I'm
Yo,
good
it
with
makes
that.
sense that you're from California, dog, or you're from LA because no, I noticed there's like a lot of times people within the sport culture in Toronto, there's a certain passion that just isn't there
Right.
because they haven't been exposed to what real sport culture is in the States. I'm not
For
hating on
sure.
Toronto. I'm just saying within hockey, you see real sport culture in Canada.
For
Aside from
sure.
that, it's not everything's kind of secondhand. We're kind of seeing what we can from the States. But when you're in the States, especially like LA, like you really are a fan of the team. You really are a part of the culture. You really bleed for your squad, right? So it's like
100%.
the way people speak, the way people, the way sports, the way you guys interpret sports and like Americans. I when I went to the States, I was exposed to that. So I realized, oh,
Yeah.
this is real sport culture. So I kind of noticed in hindsight, you telling me now that you're from LA, I'm like, okay, yeah, it makes sense.
Well, I mean,
You
listen,
got
USC, UCLA, one of the biggest rivals, and for the longest time, without a team in Los Angeles, that was professional football in LA. It was USC, it was UCLA, it was the Rose Bowl, it was playing in Pasadena. It was the biggest rivalry, and then obviously, you get the Chargers and the Rams now coming, and they're trying to take back that momentum, and USC sort of had a couple down years, but
Mhm.
USC has excelled in baseball. They had that like miracle YouTube video or a clip that a lot of people have seen. I think it was maybe like a year or 2 years ago at it was like the track and field championships where SC is like fourth place coming into the 4x100 relay, and this lady is catching this girl from Oregon, and it's like the most
Oh yeah,
inspirational
yeah. Yo,
video.
who
It's
was it?
crazy.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember who that was again.
Yeah, and the commentators are like, "Oh, there's no way anyone's gonna catch her," and then they start to
Yeah. That was
retract,
a
like,
nasty
"No,
race.
it was yeah,
Yeah,
it was crazy," and I love that kind of
yeah.
stuff, And I've
Mm.
always had an appreciation for track and field. Never good enough to really compete outside of like cross country and like my slimmer days, but there's like it's a track and field athletes are like a different breed, and they have like this confidence and also this this humbleness to them. And everyone who listened to the Good Rookies podcast knows that I'm the number one Anson Henry fan, the guy who would beat
Fact, yeah.
Usain Bolt in a 35-meter
And let's not
race.
go that far. But yeah,
But
you
let's
get
talk
me in
about
trouble,
that.
dude.
So you go to school at the Washington State University. It wasn't
Mm.
you weren't expecting to go there? Not that you weren't happy, but you weren't expecting to go there, and you really burst onto the scene in the track and field team. Take me through that experience of going from really starting grade 12 in OAC to like jumping right in on the collegiate level and competing with the best of the best.
Right. So I left Canada as the Canadian junior champion. So I'm the fastest junior in Canada. So I'm going to the States pretty confident about what I'm going to do in the NCAA. Yo, man, my first year, I got some beatings, yo. Like I got licks. I got beat. I got beat worse than I ever got beaten in my life, dog. Like it was really like eye-opening. I mean,
Right.
you see the stats. Like I know I'm going down there running 1040. good for a high schooler. But you
Yeah.
got guys down there running 10:0, 9 seconds, which is 4/10 of a second. But let me tell you something. 4/10 of a second when you're at a certain level is like meters. It's
Right.
beatings. So I go down there my first year and I'm getting annihilated, yo. So I didn't handle that well. I wasn't really used to losing like that. You know what I'm saying? So sophomore year came around and I hit the fall training a lot better. And I was really coming into form. I qualified for the state NCAA championships pretty early in the season, but then got injured. And that season
Right.
was a wash. Then my junior year, I kind of came around. I actually qualified for the NCAA championships, and then going into my senior year, which is a big deal because
Right.
you got to qualify on a list and you're selected to go. So that was a big deal to me to just qualify. But I knew that by my senior year, I wanted to be All American because All American status is where you want to be able to say you went there and you were amongst the top 8 in the entire country,
Right.
and it's prestigious, right? And I was able to do that my senior year, indoors and outdoors. So it was cool to be able to do that, especially as a Canadian, because they don't really rate us, yo. Like they they think that they think the Canadians are inferior when it comes to sports, and I mean they
Yeah.
do beat us in most sports, but like we have had some really good talent come out of Canada, so it was cool to be like representing Canada in the NCAA and then having some success. And then and that just ended up, leading into professional career. But I went down there and took some licks, dog. Like, I was getting beats. It was crazy. I was in the shower crying like movie scenes, like just head up against the wall, shower water trickling down my face. Just wanted to come home, dog. It was tough, but I came around.
I'm sure that's hard, right? Because you have that like sort of middle school to high school mentality. You go from, being a big fish in a small pond to all of a sudden a small fish in a very big competitive pond, right? And you hit the nail on the head. You talked about the United States sort of looking down as if Canada's like the little brother. Sure, like in hockey, we have probably the best athletes of all time from, obviously Wayne Gretzky, number one, but we have a laundry list of Canadian hockey players in the top 10 all time. And then you start to look at some other sports and you're like, basketball, Steve Nash is probably our crown jewel right now. Obviously, you have some up-and-comers, and the game of basketball is starting to elevate itself now with that trickle-down effect from the United States and the NBA having some longevity now in Toronto and formerly Vancouver. And you look at baseball and you're kind of like, sure, yeah, we maybe have one or two guys. Larry Walker might have been the guy. And so you're starting to see, after generations of having teams inside of Canada, we're now starting to develop and be there. And obviously, you said it too. We got like Ben Johnson, probably top one or two most known Olympic sprinters, athletes. You have, obviously, God, I'm forgetting his name right now. Donovan Bailey. Yeah. So you have Donovan Bailey, who then put
he
the
wouldn't
whooping
like
on.
that.
Yeah,
put the most people, everybody remembers Ben. Ben was the guy. No one's gonna forget Ben's name, but everyone would be like the other one.
I remember
did his thing. He really did his thing. But
he
Ben
did his
was
thing,
like,
not just at the Olympics. He did his thing and whooped Michael Johnson's ass at the
That
Sky
too.
Dome.
Yeah.
And he did something that you didn't do back then. He called out Michael Johnson. He was like, oh, he's sad, he's sorry. He pulled up because he knew he was gonna get beat. He was out there talking trash.
yeah.
Just
But that was
beautifully.
an example of Americans don't like when we beat them at stuff.
For sure.
So when we had the fastest man in the world, all of a sudden,
Yeah.
they want to call on a 200-meter runner from
Right.
the USA, 200-meter, 400-meter runner, talking about, no, we got the fastest man in the world, because there was no one in the 100 that was going to mess with Donovan. So they're talking.
Right.
So it was cool that Donovan like solidified that. I just wish that Michael Johnson was able to finish the race so it was like a clear victory.
Right.
To beat him anyways, but
Right.
you can't. The fastest man in the world, isn't a 200-meter, 400-meter guy unless he can run 100. There's some 200-meter, 400-meter guys now that can run 9 seconds though. Michael Johnson wasn't one of them. So if you're not able to do that, if you're not able to hit those top speeds, you're not the fastest man in the world. But Americans don't like when we beat them at stuff. I don't like it.
It's interesting because we're going to talk about something a little bit later too when we talk about greatest athletes of all time. And LeBron James, after winning his 4th NBA championship, sort of said a similar thing about all of the fans of Michael Jordan. He's like, every time I have some sort of success, the levels change, or the lines open up, and it's like, it wasn't like this before, but now I won, and now we're moving the goalposts. And it's interesting because it really is an American sort of mentality. You don't really see that with many other sports or many other countries doing that same thing, where we now have to justify why our guy, and in this case Michael Jordan, is the people's greatest of all time. And it's sort of discrediting what a LeBron James is sort of doing. So I definitely agree. The Americans don't like to lose.
No, it's good though. I mean, that's why they're so good at everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, losing it's not something that they ever want to be a part of or used to. So they're always pushing the envelope, trying to make sure they're the best, the greatest. And that's I think that's what I appreciated the most about going down there, is that it changed. I think I always had that, but it definitely, wafted the flame. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a good environment to like harbor that. And I think that I appreciate the States for that, because they make sports. It's not the only place in the world where sports culture is rich, but I'm just saying, like, for me, that's where I got exposed to what sports culture is, what it means to really want to win, to do what it takes to win, to not be comfortable with losing. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, I rate them for that. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. You became a product of your environment, right? Like, you had to adapt with what was going on around you.
Had to.
And so in 2002 at the NCAA indoor track and field championships, you win a bronze medal behind Justin Gatlin, I believe, and Leonard Scott. And Justin Gatlin is probably the most well-known U.S. sort of sprinter at that sort of time right now. When it comes to American born, he's still sprinting, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, man.
He's still going.
Came second at the World Championships in 2019. It's crazy.
So what was that like, knowing, okay, you're the big fish in Canada, you've now tested your medal against the other guys in the United States who are sort of the creme de la creme, and you're sitting on the podium. You're sitting on the podium against a guy who's still currently running right now with a little bit of longevity.
It's funny, like, I think back to how I used to think back then, and it's like most track athletes are never, ever satisfied. They're never happy. So I came third there, but I always felt like I should have won. Right. And most track and field athletes spend most of the time losing, because there's only one winner.
That's right.
And usually there's a handful of people who are the best, right? And everyone else is trying to be the best. So technically, you want to be a dick about it, like, everyone else is losers, right? But most people out there, I'd say 90% of the people out there feel like they should be winning. So I never really understood or really relished in what I did till I was done. Till I was like, you know what? I actually had a decent track career, man. I did some things, but while I'm competing, I'm not the best, so I suck, I'm not where I want to be. And that's a lot of track athletes just living pretty, like, it's a stressful life, dog. You just don't feel like, I wish if I can go back in time, I would just embrace it more. Like, I'm doing my thing. You know what I'm saying? I probably would have competed better too, but it's just always like, I gotta win, man. I just, and you get flashes of performance, you win here and there, but it's like, so looking back, it was cool. I did a little something, man.
I think Ricky Bobby's dad said it best: if you're not first, you're last.
That's what I'm saying, man.
And that's the mentality now.
But that in the middle of the movie, he was like, what if I said that? Yeah. Come on, you could be second, you could be third. And it was like, this guy was living by that, dog. He was living by, like, he's like, I've been living my whole life by this.
That was a good will. I like that. That was a nice will impression right there.
Yo, dog, I've seen that movie about 100 times, dog. That's my movie right there. Talladega Nights.
One of the best of all time. One of Will Ferrell's best. But I want to talk about some sort of controversy right now. We've always sort of heard opinions, but you being in a position where you could have benefited from moving up to the silver medal, because Justin Gatlin, he tests positive for, and I want to make sure I get this right because I don't want to sully anybody's name, but he tests positive for amphetamines. And so there were talks of moving you up to the silver medal and sort of bumping everybody up. Now, in your mind, obviously you want to be first. In your mind, did you think that a cheater is a cheater, you should have moved up to the silver medal? Or were you kind of like, I didn't earn it, he was still better than me, even though he cheated or even though he tested positive, I'm okay with taking my bronze medal?
You know what? I think that in track and field, and maybe across the board, but definitely in track and field, it's all about the moment of being on the podium in the place that you finish. So after it's all said and done, and not even only the moment of like being on the podium, but actually crossing the line in the position. Like once that moment's passed, it's kind of like, what's the point? Yeah. I don't know if everyone would agree with me. I think a lot of people would agree, though, that the moment is what makes the moment the moment. So once it's gone, like upon reflection, if they were to like give me the silver, okay, cool. But I mean, I got a bronze medal at the Pan American Games. Originally, I crossed the line in 4th place. So I ended up getting my medal sent to me in the mail. So I'm
not the same.
Yeah. Not the same. I remember I opened it up in the bathroom and I was looking at the medal, looking in the mirrors. Not the same, dog. It's not a podium. It's not. I'm not in my uniform no more. Ain't no one seeing me with it. It's like it's just a reminder that I didn't get the moment. So oh no, I don't know. It was cool. It would be cool if they bumped me up. Cool, but I'm not really like, yo, make sure you bump me up, man, because I'm some kind of I really wasn't even upset, to be honest. I wasn't upset about the whole him getting caught and then I should have been this, or even when I ended up getting my bronze, I wasn't mad because track's a tough sport, yo. So
for sure. I mean, 100%. Now you get to represent Canada on sort of that international level in the sense of, you competed at the Commonwealth Game, the Pan American Games. You even competed at the 2008 Olympics in Beijing. And so you're really getting to put Canada sort of on the map. You still hold Washington State University records for the 60 meter, the 100 meter.
The 60 got broke.
Oh, it did?
Oh, the 60 got broke. I still got the 100, still got the 200. You know who broke the 60 meter record? Have you seen that video that went viral of that kid jumping over the really high hurdle? He's doing box jumps.
Is it the one that you posted? And I was like, is this guy on with springs?
Yeah. So I put him out there. He went to Washington State and he got the 60 meter record. That's the dude. Yeah. So he got my 60 meter record, but it's cool. He's a cool kid, yo. So
because it's interesting because, track and field records are starting to fall a little bit quicker now, right? We talk about the footwear. We talk about just the way that athletes are built, and your 100 meter record and 200 meter record still after this amount of time. And it's not as if, you were out of university, like 30 years ago, but if a record falls after 2, 3, 4 years, that's kind of to be expected nowadays as people are starting to build themselves better. You started at, you said grade 12, grade 13, but some athletes are being bred at grade 1, early. They're on training regimens. Once they sort of hit those, okay, he's this tall, he weighs this much, we anticipate him to grow in length this much. He's perfect for the 100 or the 800 or the 1600. And so what kind of pride do you feel that, you're removed from university and yet you still hold these, I would call them prestigious records at your alma mater?
It's cool to still have that, what I'm saying? Because I guess it still connects me to that time.
Right.
Because usually if you got a record, once the record's broken, it really solidifies that like your time's passed, yo. Like it's done. So it kind of it allows me to linger around a little while or still have like some sort of connection to that time. But records get broken, yo. So I'm not expecting it to be there forever. I mean,
fair enough.
But yeah, of course, man. Like I love having my name in the books. You know what I'm saying? I hope that I hope it stays there forever. But I'm not betting on it.
No, fair enough. And like I said, records are starting to fall a little bit quicker nowadays. Now, you get out of track and field, right? So you represent your country on multiple levels, the Commonwealth Games, as I said, Pan American Games, as well as the Olympics at Beijing. What is your transition? Because when we look at like hockey or baseball or soccer, we see sort of like what's next for the athletes. They go and they become a coach, or they go and they help out their grassroots games. What was it that sort of took you in the next step in your career?
Right. So back during them times, like if you were an All-American, like if you look at the 100-meter final at the NCAA championships, you look at those 8 guys and those are 8 people who are going to get shoe contracts, basically. Those are going to be the pros, basically. It's changed a little bit now. It's not as simple as that, but at that time, you're in that final 8. You're lined up there. You're getting a deal. So most people are, just waiting for the agents to start knocking on the doors. Now, agents were hollering at me before I actually made the final, but they expected me to make the final. They expected me to be moving on to the next level. And I was coming out of college just when Donovan Bailey was about to retire. So it's all about who's going to, take over the Canadian throne now. It was me and this other guy named Pierre Brown, this other guy named Nicholas Macrozaneros, like the 3 Canadian guys. Nick wasn't in NCAA, Pierre was. So it was just like, okay, and Canada's like known for speed and, it's all marketing and stuff. So it's like we were kind of like brought into that world from agents, and then shoe companies jump on, and that's usually what is going to secure some sort of income for you, along with government funding and stuff like that. And you get a few other sponsors here and there. The shoe deal is the big one though, and then that'll kind of allow you to live and train and really pursue. It's not fun and games no more. I mean, NCAA wasn't fun and games, but when you're pro, it's legit. You're managing yourself. You got to handle your own money. You got to be able to. You got to get under. You got to be a 9-second sprinter now. There's no messing around. You got to be able to. And you're talking about medals now, and everyone's going for those medals. So it becomes very serious, very quick. So that's basically what happens. You just end up having strong college performances. Agents pick you up, get you a shoe deal, and then you try and hold on to that shoe deal as long as you can. Just gotta keep running fast. You don't run fast, they'll take that shit away quick. Just waste no time. Just running for your life, legitimately.
You're just always running, like run, Forrest, run.
For real.
Now, how do you then end up from trying to get that shoe contract to being, one of the top runners and trying to be that 9-second sprinter to working with CBC?
Okay, so it's a funny story actually, because I wanted to go to a third Olympics 2012, and I was actually running pretty well. I would have been 33 at that point, so I'm running pretty well, right? And go to nationals, I win my first round. And leading into the finals, I'm cramping. My hamstrings are cramping. I don't know what it was, whatever it was, but my hamstring I can't move without my hamstring cramping. So I knew I wasn't really going to be able to run in the final. I ran in the final, ran some garbage, didn't make the team. I was supposed to. So once I didn't go, CBC hollered at me. It was like, hey, you're still in town. You want to come and do some commentary just for... At first, I was kind of like, yeah, I really want to talk about them people over there when I want to be there. I was like, you know what, let me just go do a little thing and just. So I went to the building, and then it went well. It went a lot better than I expected it to, and I realized like, yeah, it's kind of cool. I could do this. So I went to the staffing director. I was like, hey man, like, I used to run track, like, just put me on TV. He's like, yeah, doesn't work like that, buddy. You're gonna have to go back to school, and then you're gonna have to get some sort of background, and you can come back and we can talk about it. So then I ended up going to this program, Centennial, where a lot of actually there's a few CBC employees, senior employees that were professors there.
Oh wow!
And
nice.
I did pretty well there, and I realized once I was there, I didn't only want to be on TV. I realized I like producing, I like editing, I realized I had like storytelling capabilities, and then one thing led to another. They took 2 interns to CBC. I was one of them, and then I was the one that they kept. So then I've been there. So really, if I didn't get injured at nationals and went to the Olympics, I wouldn't be in media right now.
Right.
It wouldn't have happened because that's the only reason I ended up in the building that time, because I didn't make the team and they were like, well, you want to come talk some track? All right. So it kind of worked out. It changed my life, And really, I thought that was the end of the world when I got injured and didn't make the team.
Right.
But,
and it's interesting because like we see nowadays more than ever, former athletes and top stars in their sports become analysts or reporters. I mean, Tony Romo, who had a pretty good career, I wouldn't say he had the accolades or Super Bowls or anything like that, has turned into one of the most highly recruited analysts for football because of his ability to call 7 out of 10 plays from the booth before they even happen. Mm-hmm. And so it's also different, right? And I can understand, them seeing the star in you, because it's very different to hear the perspective of an athlete from a former athlete than someone who just watches athletes for a living. Because you're able to break down different things. Oh, he slipped off this. This is what he's going to look to do in this situation. Right. Watch as he comes around the break at this is mark. This is where he fully, hits his stride. So you're able to give a more colorful description as to what's going on.
I agree with that. But a lot of athletes feel like that's all you need. And that being an analyst or a journalist isn't a skill. Like it's a skill
for sure
to develop the research and convey the message in a concise manner that's going to fit within a time frame that's necessary for the production team in the control room. And it's not just sports and you played it, so just jump on TV. It's not.
Yeah.
So you can't really. I developed a real appreciation for just analysts and journalists who weren't athletes, because they're able to find the passion in the sport, find an understanding of what's going on, even though they haven't been on the track, on the field, on the rink, anything. Like they really have to study it, and being able to convey the message is an art form, like it's a real talent. Yeah. And I think that I like the fact that athletes do it though, because it does give that perspective, that in sport perspective. But I like when they have an actual background within journalism, because there's more to telling the story than just knowing the story. You know what I'm saying? Like, just because you know the story doesn't mean that you're going to tell the story well. So I think that I appreciate journalists as well who haven't been on there. It's cool. It is cool. Obviously, I think it's cool because I've been in the sports that I could speak about sports. But I'm saying, like, there's some really talented journalists out there. I haven't been out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, appreciate that.
Only took 30 minutes for us to again start to disagree on things. Here I am talking about one thing, and you were so polite. I agree. However, and what's that? However, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Anson's about to put me in my place.
It's funny that however didn't work in my favor. I'm actually talking against you. Were speaking on my behalf,
but that's the humble guy that you are. Again, in the Good Rookies podcast when we first connected, it was brought up. We were talking about Usain Bolt and his speed, and how the idea, the conception was that he wasn't a fast starter, that he really picked up his stride as he went. But then you broke it down, and that's very misleading. That's not actually true if you pay attention. He's beating guys early on. It just doesn't look like it. And I said, nah, you know what? First 40 meters, Anson would have beat him, put it on the record. That's my hot take for the day. And you're like, nah, man, I can't be saying that.
Wouldn't happen. I don't know if I said this on the podcast or not. I just wish I got to experience him as either an athlete younger or an athlete. Like, now I can enjoy looking back at some of his feats, but I was in it.
Right. So you didn't get to appreciate it at the time.
No, I'm a part of the licks. Like, I'm the one. Like, the wave of people behind him, I'm one of them guys, which it's cool now to just say, yeah, I was on the track with that guy. But at the time, like I said, everyone feels like they should be the best. So
Right.
they ain't, it's nothing, there's nothing really fun about that. But as a child, seeing Usain Bolt, it must be pretty cool, like having that kind of icon to admire and be able to like,
Oh yeah.
mimic and dream about being and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? It's a
It's
really
it's
good figure, man.
it's funny you bring up that perspective. So I want to go two different ways here. Number one, I just want to make a point of Usain Bolt's like the Michael Phelps of track and field. Michael Phelps just dominated. No rhyme or reason, was just domination. The most decorated Olympic athlete, just found a way to be better, found a way to have longevity in the sport when the sport said that you weren't going to have that sort of longevity. He found a way to make it work. And, then you talked about it being appreciative of the situation, however you were in it. And there's another guy, another top Canadian athlete who's sort of in your boat. However, he's got the continuance now that Usain Bolt is, I believe he is retired or is going to retire or is not competing the same amount, but a Canadian athlete in Andre DeGrasse who has gone toe to toe with Usain Bolt over the last, 4 to, I would say 6, maybe even 8 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. What do you think this time for Andre DeGrasse means? What do you think? Does he have the opportunity to say, listen, Usain's not here. This is my time to sort of take that next step? As an analyst, what are your thoughts?
Andre, like, he has it, man. Like,
Yeah.
he has it. Like, he, raw talent. He has the bliss of ignorance to not really understand the magnitude of the stuff he's doing.
Right.
He performs better under pressure. But a lot of people perform worse. And we're talking in the 100. Well, okay, all across track and field, but I always sound favorable to the 100. But I'm just saying, if you're talking in the 100 or 200, when nerves creep in and you're losing hundredths or tenths
Yeah.
because of nerves, like that's life changing. That's
For sure.
You're not even yourself. So if you could just compete at the level you're supposed to in pressure situations, that's great. If you compete better in pressure situations, like you're meddling. And
Right.
he does that. He has the competitive gene. And he hasn't really scratched the surface as far as like his potential. He's still kind of frail, doesn't really lift weights. He hasn't really got his grown man strength yet. He's still kind of learning the sport.
Right.
But he's just fast, yo. And but he competes really well, and he has raw ability, and he's gonna be really, when Bolt in Bolt's final year, when he came third at the World Championships, Andre got injured the week leading into that World Championships. Andre would have won. It was, to me, it was hands down, he would have won. But I mean, Andre's going to be an Olympic champion, but he has like the tools, and he's got like appeal. You know what I'm saying? He got
For sure he does.
Toronto man. You know what I'm saying? He's got a swag about him. Like he's got all the tools. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's cool that Canada is able to have an athlete like that, because he's going to be, he's going to be one of those crossover athletes that are like, they're known in track, but they're just known, like he's known around Toronto just because.
For sure he is.
And so as a track athlete, usually Donovan had to be the best. He had to win the gold medal to have this type of notoriety. But Andre just got that, you know what I'm saying, that appeal. So got all the tools, man. So it's cool that Canada is able to have an athlete like that, for sure.
Yeah, shout out to Andre DeGrasse. Great follow on Instagram. Like you said, he's very marketable. The stuff he's putting out is great. Definitely, maybe a future episode we're gonna get Andre DeGrasse on here and we'll talk.
That'd be cool,
talk
man.
about Olympics. Hopefully that's the game plan now. That's the game plan. But I mean, we saw it. I mean, there are some pretty famous pictures of Usain Bolt and Andre DeGrasse going sort of toe to toe. Yes, Usain Bolt's kind of like looking back at him, but Andre doesn't have those like caught in the headlights look that most people get before they even start. right? They're intimidated against the guy that they're going up against who's creamed everybody and everyone's picking to win the medal and you're just going to lose no matter what. And Andre Grass like, nah, like if he's going to win, he's going to beat me, but I'm not losing before we even start.
Yeah.
And he's got that sort of swag, but he's got that like Canadian, I'm a nice guy, but that American sort of, I'm going to still try to beat your ass right now.
You know, like, he went to SC, right?
I do know that he went to SC. I do know that he went to SC because I think that was the first time that I saw one of his races. Now at that point, I think he was either graduating or he had left SC, and it was kind of one of those like, where did he start? And I saw the colors, and I was like, that's my guy. I can stand behind anybody who goes to SC. I'll stand behind them. Doesn't matter if you're first or last. But like Andre DeGrasse, and then he ends up being a Canadian who is trying to, you know, restore Canada to glory in that, you know, 100 and 200 meter discipline. And so you said it, you know, it's the hot take. I'm gonna save the clip. You said you expect him to be an Olympic champion at some point.
And there's only 2 sprinters in the world who were able to make the 100 meter at the last World Championships to be in the 100 meter final and the 200 meter final. Andre is one of them from Canada, and the other one's Aaron Brown, also from Canada. To be in both finals is huge. Also, a USC guy, Aaron Brown.
Listen.
So 9-second sprinter and 19-second. They both got some real potential. The thing is, Andre in big moments rises. Aaron's kind of trying to find his inner voice to guide him through those moments right now. And I mean, he's got some time, talents there, but yeah, man, 2 USC guys, man, leading Canada. You should be happy about that, man.
What more do we need to say? I mean, we could just end the podcast right now. Here we go, USC number 1. Well, we're going to continue to dive into some things because there's some other stuff I'd like to talk to you about. Now, it's interesting because, you know, you said you started track and field so late, but your number 1 sport or your main sport growing up was basketball.
Basketball, yeah.
And so I would be remiss to, you know, not bring up basketball as we've had very many, you know, conversations offline about this. What did it mean to you to see your hometown team bring home a championship for the first time in franchise and NBA history?
Okay. I'm gonna lose a lot of people here. I was extremely happy because it was Toronto, right?
Okay.
I gotta be honest, though, it didn't feel the same. Because I think I took the whole DeRozan situation a little bit differently than most.
Right.
I really believe that we would have been able to win with the team we had already. That's just what I feel like. We didn't. Okay. I mean, we took the safer route. You know what I'm saying? Well, how are you going to pass up on Kawhi? It's tough. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. I feel like Kawhi landed an amazing situation with us. We had an amazing developing supporting cast that was ready for a star. I feel like DeRozan was a developing star. And you know, I can't say I was a huge fan of Casey, but if you already get rid of the coach, I mean, getting rid of your star player, I didn't think we needed to. So I think that I had no attachment to Kawhi. Kawhi's just some guy that came in for a year and I knew he was leaving. So as far as me being super happy for Kawhi and feeling a real tie to the team, the only player that had been there through the grind really was Lowry, and I was happy for him. But a lot of those players, I mean, I think after him, everyone else had been there for maybe 3 years the most. So it's a lot of new, fresh faces. I would like to see DeMar and Kyle do it, and I feel like they could have. You know what I'm saying? Right. LeBron was out of the way. Everyone, Pascal was developing. Van Vliet was healthy for this playoffs. I mean, the team was just coming together. I feel like I feel like it was. We didn't have to go that route, so we won. I was happy, and I mean, the city was happy, but I don't know, man. It just didn't hit the same way it would have if the squad originally that we had won it. So it was, we won, but I mean, come on. If we're the same team, you don't think we could have got through those Golden State Warriors? You know what I'm saying? With barely anybody still left on the team, we'd beaten Milwaukee a few seasons in a row already with Giannis and everything. Like, we're just gonna get by LeBron. Kawhi didn't even have to go through LeBron.
It's true.
You know
It's
what I'm
true.
saying?
And I mean, we agree on this. We agree very much so on this because I think Kawhi was fortunate to come into a culture that Masai had helped build and put the roots in there where he was more of a final piece as opposed to the main reason that Toronto was able to walk
And
away with
DeMar
the
helped
championship.
build. DeMar helped build that too.
And he's an SC guy, right? There we go again.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, man. Like it was. I don't feel like Kawhi came here and won us a championship or saved us. Like he had a much easier path to that championship than DeRozan had. We went 6 games versus the Cavs in 2015 or 2016. I can't remember. Whatever year LeBron they ended up beating that 73 win team.
Yep.
So that's the team we lost to. Like we're doing something. Like we lost to a championship team.
That's right.
So it's and like if Kawhi came here and busted through LeBron and beat a Warrior squad that had everybody healthy, okay, I could be like, yeah, thank you, Kawhi. But that's not what happened at all.
Especially when you look at their record without Kawhi during the regular season, right? I mean, we're in agreement. Listen, I think he played an important role. If we're not going to say he was the skilled player who put them over the top and was the reason that they won, the one thing that I think, if you ask anybody from that Raptor team, was a level of business-like mentality that he brought to the Toronto Raptors. And we saw that throughout the playoffs last year. And we got to see a little bit of that this season pre-bubble where they were more about their business of we're here to compete, we're here to win, this is our goal, nothing else matters. And they lost a little bit of that like charismatic Toronto feel, but they were determined and they knew what was at stake. And they knew especially this year what was at stake because everyone was going to say that they only won because of Kawhi Leonard.
Right.
And they really had something to prove this year. And I truly believe in my heart of hearts, no COVID, Toronto was the best team in the NBA pre-bubble.
Yes.
And in the bubble, they were the best team until Miami's work-like mentality just sort of took over. By all means, listen, I'm not trying to hate on my Lakers. They won the championship. I do not think that they were the best team. I think they found ways to win. Yeah. They found ways to win, but I think the best teams were in the Eastern Conference, Toronto Raptors, Miami Heat, 1A, 1B, and I think, like I said, pre-COVID, I think Toronto's in the NBA Finals again.
Totally
and
agree.
Have a chance to prove people wrong. And now, unfortunately, we run into the business side of sports where we likely aren't able to run it back to really be able to see what happens. And we're going to have to adapt and see where Toronto goes in 2020 to 2021 season. It's tough, man. It's tough.
This is my issue with us getting rid of DeRozan too. Like I don't want to go back to sucking again, man. Because I'm gonna support the team regardless, but I'm supporting a team that ain't playing well. And I wasn't ready for that life. And we built our way out of that life.
For sure.
Like, and DeMar led us through that. And I feel like no one appreciates that. It's just like, we'll get rid of him, get Kawhi here, let's just win. And then all of a sudden Kawhi's here, we win. We got all these Raptor fans that came out of nowhere that are obviously going to disappear now.
Yeah.
But the real Raptor fans like myself, and I mean, you're a Laker fan, but I'm a diehard Raptor fan. I'm the one that's going to be sticking with them when they start losing again.
Yeah.
But all the fair weathers are going to come back if we land somebody. That's so lame. Like I'm not a fan of that, yo. That's why I didn't feel what I should have felt when we won the championship because I didn't feel that tied to the team. I
didn't feel DeMar got a fair shake either because sure, you make the trade, but there was no guarantee that Kawhi was going to lead us to a championship. We could have, and it comes down to two things. Kawhi Leonard injury, if he ends up playing half the season or doesn't play at all, it's not a good look. The only reason people are praising it is because they won the championship. Exactly. However, we talked about, the credit that Nick Nurse is getting, right? And how he is loved by the Toronto fan base, can do no wrong, even after the Raptors end up losing this year. However, he's won rim out in Game 7 against Philly. If they go on and lose that game in, overtime to Philadelphia, it's a complete like history for the Raptors.
Totally.
100%, you know, and it's you know, he did it for such a short time, and like Kawhi Leonard came into a situation that had already been created. He wasn't the builder of the success for the Toronto Raptors. Sure, he came up with different schemes and he was able to adapt, but again, he's inheriting all of these pieces. He's not out here sort of putting his stamp on this team saying, oh, this is the Nick Nurse Toronto Raptor team, and that's why they won the NBA championship.
Right. No. He landed an amazing position too. It's just, I don't know, man. Them winning makes it seem like, okay, that was obviously the best decision because they won, but really is like so many things happened in order for that to happen. Like the no LeBron factor is a huge thing.
Yep, for sure.
And then the Warrior squad that's being led by Draymond, like, it's like, come on, man, like, no one's seeing this. Do people really feel like, oh, thank God Kawhi came here and changed the culture for us because we would have been lost without him? Like, come on, man, come on, look at the path this guy had to take. No one's seeing this. I don't know, man. Like, I don't know.
It's
like
interesting.
I'm alone when I'm talking about this stuff, man.
Nah, you know, I'm on board. Like I totally get it, and you know, unfortunately, there's no way to sort of redo things. Like it is what it is. But I think, for instance, if you look at like a Frank Vogel for the LA Lakers, yes, you inherit arguably the best player in the world in LeBron James, and you get Anthony Davis and you trade for him, and then you sort of put this mix match, you know, team together of Jared Dudley's and Kyle Kuzma and all these guys, JaVale McGee, and Dwight Howard. But if you look at the impact that he had on that team, if you were to say the Lakers have Anthony Davis and LeBron James and they're scoring 140 points a game, you'd be like, oh, yeah, I get it. Two offensive juggernauts. But what won them the NBA championship was being able to play defense.
Defense is crazy.
Is Frank Vogel's bread and butter. He said, listen, he's the defensive-minded coach. He did it in Indiana, and that's what he instilled on the Toronto Raptors, or on the LA Lakers. Mm-hmm. And I think he had a much bigger impact with inherently a good team, not a great team, but a good team, because in any matchup outside of maybe the Blazers, if you were to take the 10 best players in any series that the Lakers played, Anthony Davis and LeBron James are going to be numbers 1 to 4. And then from 5 to 10 is going to be all of the other team.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, Goran Dragic, Bam Adebayo. Like, I mean, and then you have like Kyle Kuzma. Then you have Dwight Howard. Then you have KCP. But really, they're the two best players, and the system that he instills is the reason the Lakers found a way to be successful. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's my take.
It was, I give Vogel credit. Like, I don't feel like he landed, he didn't land it. Okay, well, some may debate this, but I feel like what landed in Nurse's lap was a lot more than what landed in Vogel's lap. To me, I feel like Vogel, you get the two amazing players, but the rest of the squad isn't that impressive, dog. Like, they're not really turning heads. So, and if one of those players gets injured, though, that's trouble. If something happened to LeBron or something happened to AD, they're not winning. They're not winning any more games. Like when it looked like AD's ankle turned or something.
It was his heel. Yeah, he came down on his heel.
Game 5, I was like, if he's not playing Game 6, they're not winning. They will not win.
I was sweating. I was sweating.
Yeah, but he managed the team well, man, and the defense was crazy. Like, really, it was the defense that was like, especially against Miami, they opened the floor up so much, and they were still able to, keep the threes down, and they kept Bam under control. Jimmy was tired. I mean, he busted his ass the whole playoff stock, so that's all they had left. But it was cool, man. It was cool. It's cool. Asterisk championship.
Oh, stop it. Why? I thought we were going to get through
Did I say it out loud?
I
thought it. I didn't know it was going to come out of my mouth.
I see you reading your notes over there. I see it. Now, this is one of the things that came up. because I had sent an Instagram post to Anson about 19% of people polled said that the championship for the season in the NBA should have an asterisk. And
Only 19 though.
I can't remember if it was higher or if it was lower,
That poll
but it
must
was
have been taken in LA.
after they won the championship.
Somewhere else. Yeah, I think they should take that poll somewhere else. Only 19%.
But it's interesting because, then I brought up the examples of, shortened seasons due to lockout or to strike or to Olympics or whatever, where you weren't able to play the games. There was no asterisks. There was never any talk of it. It was that, that's the hand you were dealt and that's what you had to deal with. And then I cited what players said. Players said this was one of the hardest grinds that they ever had to go through. Being away from family, being away from all of these things and sort of being locked in a bubble. It was mentally draining, and we saw players like, Paul George, who talked about the mental side of the game really, wreaking havoc on them. And you would hear none of that nonsense. You were like, no, it's different. Now, I want you to sort of explain your take on why you think there should be an asterisk, or maybe you don't actually believe it, but you're just like giving me a hard time. But what would be the reason for an asterisk?
Well, I like poking at Laker fans, but being honest here, I don't think there's anything really that bad with an asterisk. I think that's what people hear asterisk. They're like, whoa, hold on a second. No, they look at what they had to go through, and look at and I understand it was a very difficult championship to win. And it was an amazing feat. And I give them credit for being the team to come out on top in these adverse conditions. That was not easy. Okay, so an asterisk doesn't take away from that. Where I'm coming from is there's never been a season like this.
Right.
And we know that every season has 82 games that teams and coaches and players have to manage their lives through. You have to build towards the playoffs. You get to the playoffs, and once you get to the playoffs, you apply strategies that you've learned throughout the season. So it's a process. It's the path that you have to follow.
Okay,
that's just what it is. Now, this was not that. It just wasn't. Okay. And also, you take the crowd factor out of it. You know what I'm saying? That helps LeBron's free throws. That helps a lot of people's, in pressure situations. I mean, a lot of people play better in scrimmages or practices because they don't have to deal with,
sure,
all the eyes within the stadium. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, millions of people are watching on TV, but it ain't the same. Like, you're just in there playing ball. So a lot of people, it's totally different basketball, totally different atmosphere, totally different basketball, totally different season, totally different process. Now, if you look at it from that standpoint, and it's not the same as the typical season, the asterisk is just stating that this was different. That's all. That's the only place I'm coming from. It was just a different season. Now, is it less of a feat? Arguable. I wouldn't go as far as saying, didn't mean anything, because it was hard. It was very difficult. So, but the asterisk doesn't mean that it wasn't difficult. It just means that it was a very different season. And I don't see how. I mean, I know it's your team, so you're going to defend them. So you can defend them to the death. But I'm just saying, I don't see how you could say that it just wasn't a different season. Like, it was different. This was an abnormal season. And can you confidently say that they would have won without this COVID break?
So if you remember what's going on in the Western Conference at that time, Milwaukee is starting in the East to start to lose a lot of games, and the Lakers are starting to roll. Like, they're encroaching on, probably not catching, but getting closer to securing home court advantage throughout the Western Conference final. For sure, they pulled away from the Lakers and getting close to a Milwaukee, and they were finding their groove. I would make the argument that there are other teams that benefited from a layoff because they had some of their players who were injured able to come back and be healthy for the bubble. And so,
do you feel like the Clippers were kind of finding their groove too, though?
No, I found like the Clippers were like, they're maybe not as dysfunctional as they ended the season, but at that point, they had maybe played 4 games with their actual lineup of all of this. Because remember, Pat Beverly, he gets injured, and then Kawhi's doing load management, and Paul George is kind of in and out of the lineup. And I think they had a better chance to get some continuity. I don't think they ever really did, but they had a better chance to get it through the bubble, to play some warm-up games. Obviously, Pat Bev got injured again.
Right.
But I think at that time, the Lakers had just beaten the Clippers after losing, I think, the first 2 matchups. Right. So again, now I think the Lakers are gaining momentum towards their push to. I was afraid the break honestly was going to hurt the Lakers more than it was going to help.
Really?
Them. I really do. I thought that the Lakers were just such on a roll, and a lot of other teams were sort of floundering. The Raptors were doing really good. Milwaukee was kind of doing not so great. CJ McCollum, I believe, got injured for the Blazers. They were even out of the playoffs. Like they're probably not even making the playoffs if this continues, but they get a little break. So I feel like the Lakers were in a good spot. I don't know if there was a team that was in a better spot in the West that would have knocked them off, but you could make the argument for like a Toronto Raptors, who I think, like I said, pre-bubble, pre-COVID, was like the number 1 team in the NBA, just the way that they were playing. They were playing just incredible ball all season.
Right.
So that's what I would say. I mean, it's, like you said, I'm a Laker fan, but I think if you paid attention to the season and what was going on, the little nuances, I think the Lakers were in a better spot where they were finally starting to get themselves.
You don't think LeBron benefited from a bit of rest?
Oh, for sure. I mean, obviously he benefited from rest, and same with AD, who historically hasn't been healthy throughout his entire NBA career. He goes through stretches of injury, but again, if all things are considered, maybe they get injured, maybe they slow down, but I feel like momentum was on their side as they were progressing through their season, as they started to get some continuity of what their team was going to be. That would be my
You're
thought.
A good fan, man. You're a good fan. So momentum was on their side. Cool.
I believe so.
But the fact that it's debatable.
Sure. I mean, but okay, so
you gotta put an asterisk.
So would you put an asterisk?
Not taken away from it, but the fact that it's debatable.
Would you put an asterisk beside all major sports in 2020? Would you be cool with that?
Yeah.
Every sport gets an asterisk because baseball, 60-game season, and not even that, they had to go to winning percentage in order to be able to determine playoffs. The NFL is the giant shit show right now. They're likely going to go the same mode if they have to cancel more games for teams that are testing positive more than once and having games canceled. The NHL moved to a bubble. They didn't finish their 82-game season, so they were very similar, took the crowd out of it.
Right.
So in uniformity, would you just say, 2020 is
everything.
The year of the asterisk, doesn't take away, but it just says it was a different time.
Absolutely. Everything. And I think that's what a lot of people, the main kickback, I think, is just because they feel like when you say asterisk, you're taking away from the accomplishment.
For sure.
You're not taking away from the accomplishment. It's cool. It's amazing that you were able to still do your thing, do that. But it's the conditions are totally different. And it's not even like they're slightly different. They're totally different, right? So you have to. In every sport, I think you have to put an asterisk, which is cool. I'm glad sports came back, and I'm glad we still got some sort of entertainment. Bubble basketball was actually better than I expected it to be. But it was. I mean, just you have to put an asterisk on it because this is unprecedented, man.
I think the connotation of like an asterisk, it just more often than not, previous to this, it was a negative symbol. It was seen as to take away. So maybe if we look at something that's not an asterisk, but some sort of italicized champion,
make it look bold, different.
Like maybe,
I don't know.
But I think when we use asterisk, we think of something negative, so immediately everyone's back gets up and be like, no, we can't take away. Which I get what you're saying. It's an acknowledgement that things were different, but not taking away like it was any harder to potentially win based on the circumstances.
That's all I'm saying, man.
I like it. That's okay. You know what? It's
man. Congrats on your championship.
Listen, I'm just happy. I won a bet with my father, which we made early in the year, And he's a Clipper. He was a Laker fan, then became a Clipper fan
For real.
once they traded Shaq. So it was like that was like a USC guy going to UCLA, and we made a bet. Loser had to buy a jersey of the other team for the other person, depending on who made it further. And I was happy that night to send him a message being like, white NBA champion LeBron James jersey, so I can hang it in the back.
Yo, man. Clippers fans had it rough, yo. That's embarrassing, man. It's embarrassing for the Clippers to have got out like that, man.
That's okay. You know, they're an embarrassing franchise. Like you heard me on the podcast, The Good Rookies.
Yeah, you were pretty happy about it.
There ain't no love lost.
Sinisterly very happy. But it further proved my point as far as like Kawhi is a great player. Cool. Yep. But he needed us. He landed the spot with us.
100%.
He didn't bring nothing. We brought something to him. We worked together to get that championship. So he didn't come here and save us. We had a squad. We had a squad. He landed in a squad. He landed in a culture. So it's like, it just proved my point as far as that was concerned.
It's the same culture that Pop built in San Antonio prior to Kawhi being there, as he did for so many years.
Yeah.
Masai built the culture in Toronto for so many years, and the Clippers did their best to put a hodgepodge team together, which if you look at it outside of Pat Bev, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard, most of that team were bought out after the trade deadline. Weren't even guys on their team. They had no cap space, so they had to wait for guys like I'm trying to think, not Markieff, but Marcus Morris was a buyout guy, and they built their bench like to be able to do it because they were just trying their best to put different pieces together and thinking, oh, we just have this name talent's gonna win us a championship. Nah, man, ain't happening.
Nah, man.
Not happening.
Yeah,
but listen, I know we're getting close to having to wrap this up. I do want to get to a few things before we let you go. Now, number one, I want just a very quick take. Listen, obviously the Olympics did not happen this year in Tokyo, and we are hopeful that it will happen in some capacity in 2021. Our fingers are crossed. As a guy who is tuned into Team Canada, you know, who are like the three top names we need to pay attention to for Canadian athletes who we hope to have some success at the 2021 Tokyo Olympic Games?
Okay, so three names. Okay, so I'm going to combo Andre DeGrasse and Aaron Brown just because they run the same events.
Okay.
You know, like I said, only two sprinters in the world that were able to run the 100 and the 200 at the World Championships and make the finals in both. So medal threats in both of those events, right?
Love it.
Alicia Newman in the pole vault. She actually, she could have medaled if she didn't have as many misses at the last World Championships, but she's in the mix. She's always ranked within the top 5 in the world. That's someone that should be looked out for. Pole vault's actually a pretty interesting event too. It's pretty fun to watch. A lot of people don't realize, but a lot of track and field events, if you really just take some time to actually watch and understand what's going on, they're all pretty exciting events. And under the radar, which shouldn't be under the radar. And I didn't even bring him up in I did a video of Canadians to watch. I didn't put him in the video just because he's been injured for a couple of years, but he's coming back. I don't know if you ever heard of Derek Drouin, but Derek Drouin is high jumper, world champion, and Olympic champion in both. We don't have any other gold medalists on this team right now. He won back-to-back golds, the best in the world. Ended up getting injured, but is starting to get his health back, and he's still a defending Olympic champion, you know, and he's healthy. He's a gold medal threat, not just a medal threat. He's a gold medal threat. He's, you know what I'm saying? So Derek Drouin at the high jump is someone else to look out for. And one of the more like under the radar gold medalists at the Olympics. We don't hear about him much. It's weird. It's the only gold medal we got.
Well, it's interesting because it's interesting because we talk about marketing. You know, Andre DeGrasse is sort of like everywhere. We see him on social media and in commercials and on TV all the time. Yeah. And we think of the Olympic Games that we really strive for success for Canada, it's always going to be the winter games for now, right? It'll be hockey and curling and the winter sports, but Canada is on the come up. They are competing in the Summer Olympics at a higher rate than they were, back in maybe like Atlanta or in 2000. So I mean, we're doing it up, and you gave us 3 names or teams to sort of follow, and you brought up one thing that I definitely want to shout out: the breakdown, athletes to watch. You have this segment that you've been putting up on, I believe it's on Instagram. I'm not sure if it's on YouTube as well, where you're breaking down these athletes, and I'm sure as we get closer, we'll see a few more. What you said you love to do the editing. Are you doing this project by yourself, and how much fun are you having doing it?
Yeah, I'm doing all the editing. We actually just got a new studio at CBC now, so
oh, nice.
Like originally, before we got the studio, I would be doing all the camera work and all that stuff. But now, say we got someone handling the cameras. We got a producer in there just making sure everything runs smoothly. But that once it leaves there, yeah, I just handle it. I do all the editing. I'll write the scripts and everything before. But I don't know, just trying to bring a different perspective to some of the nuances within track and field and some of the unknown facts and some of the a lot of things that people don't know when they're watching that may garner some interest in the sport a little bit more. I think it's very odd to me that track and field is clearly the sport to watch at the Olympics.
Right.
Outside of the 4 years, it's like no one knows what's going on. It has a lot to do with marketing, has to do a lot to do with, lack of knowledge in the sport. It has to do with, we haven't found a way to really bring the entertainment value out of it. So I'm trying to just bring more eyes and more knowledge and, bring a little bit of fun out of it so that people can have some appeal. So it's not only appealing during the Olympic years, because it's an amazing sport, man. And a lot of people aren't realizing the product that is there. You know what I'm saying? It's just, we got to figure out a way to just present it better. So I'm trying to be a part of that movement in my own way. So the breakdown is just a way of just breaking down some of the nuances, bring some knowledge to people so that they can view the sport with a different eye. Yeah.
Listen, I love it. I saw your videos. I'm a big fan, obviously. And so where can people find you on Instagram if they do want to check out the breakdown athletes to watch?
Okay. So, Anson _Henry on Instagram. Anson Henry.
I was gonna say not Anson Carter, not Anson Carter,
not Anson Carter either. Don't let Julian tell y'all where to find me. Yo,
this is the reason why. This is the reason why I did not want to say it for this reason.
but yeah, on Instagram, Anson _Henry, and then just Anson Henry on Twitter. Trying to, I'm trying to be a bit more social media savvy. Because obviously that's the direction the world's going. I try to focus so much on just telling the story and also just experiencing life without having to pull a phone out or without having to, I'm trying, because life is precious, you want to experience every moment you can. And also, I want people to see the content though. So that's why I'm trying to be a bit more, social media savvy. And it's the way of the world. There ain't no way around it. And, I'm going with the flow. It's just what it is. You got to adapt. So, man, that's where I could be found. And when we leading into the Olympics, I'm going to be pumping out a lot of stuff. So, I want a lot of people to enjoy and learn, catch a story every so often.
Hopefully before the Olympics starts, we can have you on again for a more comprehensive breakdown of what to expect from the Olympics. And listen, Andre DeGrassi, if you're listening, which I'm hoping, I'm going to send this to you a million times so you can, come on the podcast. Let's talk a little, SC. We'll bring Anson back as well, and we'll have some fun talking about Washington State University and all that fun stuff. But listen, you're doing a great job. I love the stuff that you're putting out there. It's always a fun time to talk to you. Thank you for taking the time to be here tonight. And
no problem, man. Yo, you're doing your thing, yo. Like I really like the passion you bring to this shit, yo. Like you're really doing your thing, and I noticed it right when you started speaking, when we were doing the Good Rookies podcast. Like I like your energy, I like your knowledge, I like the passion, and
appreciate it.
And you're very organized, and you have
except that I fucked up your name to begin with.
You did. Now, I'm not going to hold you to that, at least not on camera. You know what I'm saying? But just is what it is. You know what I'm saying?
I
But
appreciate it, man.
thing, yeah. I thought we were going to discuss the Jordan LeBron GOAT conversation, but that's an entire show in itself. I just want to know. I just need to know. Can you just say a name? Is it Jordan or LeBron?
For me, it's Jordan, but it's not.
Hey.
It's not Jordan and no consideration. I think there's a conversation to be had.
I'm good with that. Hey, we can have the conversation. We just got to be reasonable.
Yeah. No, listen, I'm good. And I also say we can't determine the greatest of all time until careers are over and we know how to measure everything when everyone's finished.
Totally agree. So let's just leave it at Jordan and leave it at that.
Awesome. Awesome. Listen, this has been another episode of the Big O Podcast for your guest, Anson Henry, and your host, Julian Ortiz. Thank you for watching and listening. Have a great night, everybody.